Hello there my dear friends, and welcome back to another Star Wars video. It is I coming at you once again, your favourite galactic hostess, Star Wars Meg. And today, we have some huge updates for the Mandalorian and Grogu. Oh yes, finally some juicy information, and I'm gonna give you an exclusive. It might not be the news you want to hear based on some of the more recent rumours and leaks from the last week or so, but I'm just the messenger, and I'm here to share all of it with you. And then afterwards, we're going to talk about some new comments by Rian Johnson. His trilogy is officially dead, but he still has some things to say about the state of the franchise, so there's a lot to get through. But no more jibber jabber, let's dive straight in. So, the marketing for The Mandalorian and Grogu is truly ramping up, and fans around the world are learning about it for the first time. Outside of our little internet bubble, the trailers are showing in cinemas. There's the new one that's going to feature behind Avatar Fire and Dash, and the first one's been in circulation in front of Zootopia for certain audiences, so the hype train can really begin. But overnight, we had a very exciting and unprecedented update. Now it has come from a very unusual source, and I won't lie to you, I don't usually talk about Star Wars merch. I mainly collect the vintage collection. I've got a few Black Series, but on this channel I don't really talk about collecting. But today we're forced to, because the first piece of merch for the movie has leaked online. The first Hasbro Black Series for The Mandalorian and Grogu has been shared on Facebook, and then yakface.com posted it to Twitter. And take a look at this. So I'll just get a few details out of the way before getting to the good stuff. There's often a meme that goes around that we've had so many Mando Black Series, but this one is actually different. He has an extra replaceable hand. Grogu's a bit different, he's in a sitting pose, but it's Mando's accessories that has got fans talking. As we know from the trailers, he's got a new rifle. It's part of the whole back to basics, back to season 1 kind of thing. He's got his vibro knife, his blaster, his jetpack, but take a look at this. Mando has a sword, and over the last few hours, this has been the object of interest. Why does Mando have a bleeding sword? The first question that comes to mind is, did Lucasfilm regret destroying the Darksaber? By choice, he gave it to Bo. It was a technicality because she beat the spider tank, and then when she faced off against Moff Gideon, it was destroyed, and fans are wondering, is this to compensate for that decision? Does Jon Favreau regret it? And then the second question, why does Din have this sword? Well, my guess is he uses it in the gladiator ring, when he's fighting the giant creatures. And by the way, there are multiple of them, but they're just off screen. He gets the weapon maybe from Rotta, and he probably slays them with it. Some people say it might be Beskar. I don't think so, but it's definitely a cool new weapon, and one which we haven't seen yet. And remember that Sigourney Weaver and Pedro Pascal and tons of others who worked on the movie say that the action in The Mandalorian and Grogu is off the charts, so I'm excited. In other Mando news, I have a bit of a Star Wars Meg exclusive. So do you remember that synopsis that leaked online a week or two ago? The one that said that Grogu's going to find some kind of ancient MacGuffin, some ancient artifact that's going to bolster his powers. Well, it turns out that was entirely bollocks, complete nonsense, and made up. And we know this because Star Wars Santa, our good friend with a source close to the project, has confirmed. He asked them about it, and they responded, it's nonsense. That is not the plot for the movie. I'm a little bit disappointed, as I'm sure some of you will be, because I was hoping the movie was going to explore the Force in some depth. And I guess another reason I'm disappointed is because those missions make for great stories. It's very Indiana Jones, but I like it, and it would have been cool in the context of Mando and Grogu, but now I'm worried that the original rumours are true. Now don't get me wrong, I'm still excited for the action and adventure, the fight scenes and the Remnant and seeing Rotta run around with Mando, but I was hoping there was going to be some kind of twist. Something which moves the Mandoverse forward and feels meaningful. And there could still be that, but the same person did say, keep your expectations low, because this movie is very much a litmus test, just to see how many fans show up to the cinema to see Mando, a kind of bridge between important stories. So there you have it, The Mandalorian and Grogu does not have an ancient artifact. It's not going to be the Kyber crystal, it's not going to be some ancient lightsaber or anything like that. All of the information, including the planet name, was made up. And when it comes to anything on the internet, leaks, rumours or otherwise, there is always the chance they're wrong. In other Star Wars news, my friends, another buzzing topic of the week has been Rian Johnson's Wake Up Dead Man, the third installment of the Knives Out trilogy, and I watched it. I thought it was really good. I think I still prefer the first two, the first one especially, but when Rian Johnson was interviewed about the movie, he was obviously asked about The Last Jedi, and now he says this: "The worst sin for Star Wars creators is to be afraid of anything that shakes it up." And I'll get to the quote in just a second, but it's interesting he's saying this because he believes that Episode 8, The Last Jedi, really went outside the box. And he's not wrong. Whether you love the movie or you despise it, it's a very different kind of Star Wars movie. And according to Rian Johnson, his new movie is not too dissimilar to The Last Jedi in the way it explores faith and puts our beliefs under a microscope. Here's what he said: "Having grown up a Star Wars fan, I know that thing where something challenges it, and I know the recoil against that. I know how there can be infighting in the world of Star Wars, but I also know that the worst thing is to handle it with kid gloves. The worst sin is to be afraid of doing anything that shakes it up. Because every Star Wars movie going back to Empire and onwards shook the box, and rattled fans, and got them angry, and got them fighting, and got them talking about it. And then for a lot of them, got them loving it and coming around on it eventually." Now before we get on to his religion comments, I just gotta hit the brakes and analyze what he just said, because he brings up a very important point. As human beings, we're very nostalgia driven. We're very attached to those things that made us feel something as kids. So when new iterations of those things come out, when the formula is shaken, when things are changed, we're gonna feel like a part of us, a part of our childhood, has been violated in some way. And he says he understands that, but you also can't play it too safe. You can't handle Star Wars with kid gloves and just do the same thing again and again. But the example he uses, which he also used in the Last Jedi press tour, still doesn't make any sense to me. He's adamant that people hated The Empire Strikes Back. I saw a video a few years ago where someone broke down what Rian Johnson was referring to, and I think it was one or two very controversial journalists who were just trying to be counterculture and go against the grain, and they were saying that they thought Empire was the worst sequel to Star Wars that could have ever been released. But aside from those very niche opinions, Empire was beloved, because yes, it didn't play it safe. It wasn't the sequel to A New Hope that 20th Century Fox wanted George to make. They wanted to return to Tatooine, they wanted the same formulaic layout, they were nervous about the budget, they wanted something more upbeat and something familiar. But George did the exact opposite. He insisted on a dark tone, a cliffhanger ending, a crazy twist, with Vader being Luke's father, new worlds, exploring the Force, showing us Yoda, the Jedi Master who instructed Ben Kenobi. So yes, it was very different from the original, and it shook things up, but not in the same way as The Last Jedi, because with Episode 8, the main fan criticism of it was that it destroyed the legacy characters, the heroes of the saga, and Empire definitely didn't do that, neither did Return of the Jedi. The characters had a very clear evolution, based on timeless mythology, generational story tropes and the hero's journey. Very little from the original movie was undermined, so I don't like Rian's example. Then he goes on to talk about religion, and he says this: "The same thing goes for religion for me. People who are raised outside of faith sometimes think it's this touchy thing that you have to handle with kid gloves. I grew up very Christian," he says. "It was a very personal thing for me. I'm not a believer anymore. I'm no longer a Christian. But when I was, you're constantly rattling the box for yourself. You're constantly being offended by things. But then it's not like it just shuts off the real world and how it challenges your beliefs." I think he's giving a very genuine and human response here. He's saying even when you leave religion, certain parts of it, certain, I guess you could say, superstitions and beliefs, they're still part of how you think, whether that's tied to guilt, or more positive things like love, maybe the way you see the universe, whether you find a different faith or you don't. Regardless, there is always this defensive part of you, because in his case, it was something that shaped him, and I would say Wake Up Dead Man does a great job at pulling this off, maybe more so than The Last Jedi, but I will give it to him. That theme is consistent in both movies, when you're talking about the Force, and when you're talking about Luke Skywalker being this Jedi legend, someone that was mythologized, revered. But those are Rian's comments. I'd love to know what you guys think, and if you enjoyed this video, please be sure to give me a big fat thumbs up, subscribe if you're new, and may the Force be with you, always.